Hello, everybody. What we're going to look at now is the choice of primary user and how to interview that primary user. Before we do that, we'll revise a little bit. So here's my portfolio that I'm making alongside you. There's my concept map. You, of course, will need to do two of them based on your specific concepts, not sustainable living. And then, as we saw in the last video, I went on and produced a context mood board. At the end of that video, I shared it with Miss Dillnut, and here's the feedback she left me. Great work, it's very kind of her. You've highlighted issues you are facing rather than solutions that might already be out there. Try to add some more images with explanations before going on to the next task. So I've done that. I've added this extra image, which is a very current image. It's from when people have gone to the beach after COVID lockdown and they've left rubbish all over the beach. I put a little bit of a note on there as well. So this is how the sharing and feedback system works. You share it to your teacher, they leave you feedback, you do the necessary changes. They might say to you, that's great, move on. If you've done it correctly, they might say, that's great, move on. Next task then, potential users. I have here two possible potential users. The first one is my wife, and the second one is my brother. Now, we've talked in the past about good choices for potential users. I use the example of a choice between my wife and the Queen. My wife, I see every day. I can talk to her whenever I need to. She's a good choice for a primary user. The Queen, I never see. I'm never going to be able to see her. So she's a really bad choice for a potential user, for a primary user. So I've got two reasonably good choices here, my wife and my brother. So my brother, I don't see him as often as my wife, of course. He lives other side of Norfolk from me. But he's connected to the context because he lives and works in the natural environment. He lives in a very rural place, more rural than I do, and his job is in the natural environment. He is a forester and he manages ecosystems. That is, every day he is doing sustainability, so he's linked to the context that way. My wife, on the other hand, is very passionate about sustainability. It's something that she's constantly trying to improve about our lives, and that is because she's a geologist. She's aware, or really aware, of macro environmental issues, climate change, this kind of thing. And she's of the opinion that these things can only be solved by every person in the world doing things differently. So she is connected to the context as well. Don't forget, of course, your contexts are different. These are just examples. So these are my two potential users. I've chosen to use my wife as the primary user because I see her every day. If I see my brother once a month, that's no good for this project. I'm going to need to see him more regularly than that. So moving on now. Primary user interview. Now, I did this interview on WhatsApp. So I just typed my questions to my wife and she gave me the answers back. That might be a good way for you to do it as well, because then you've always got those answers saved. Of course, you can do it face-to-face, sat down by the kitchen table and write the answers down as you go. However you do it is up to you. Importantly, though, look at the questions I've asked. I haven't asked sort of useless questions like, what is your name? How old are you? What's your favourite colour? That's not important, doesn't matter. I've gone straight in with questions that are related to the context. The point of this interview is to get you more information about what your primary user might want you to design for them. So my first question, what do you think of when you hear the words sustainable living? My wife answered, products and lifestyle choices that are non-extractive and can be reused and recycled and made from materials that are easily reproduced. The materials and product can keep on going and going. So like I said, she is already aware of sustainability. She knows what it means. She's got a good idea of what that looks like. My next question, have you any examples of how your lifestyle is sustainable? She says buying products that have a higher quality and longer life, limited food waste that goes into compost, producing our own electricity through solar panels. We go on public transport holidays now. We don't fly anywhere, and we have as much fair trade and sort of recycled material clothes as possible. My next question, this is where I'm starting to identify where there could be an opportunity. So what I've asked is, are there any unsustainable or environmentally unfriendly practices that you wish you could do better at? Her answer was buying more food that contains no single-use plastic or packaging, having an electric car, having unlimited money to only buy from sustainable fair trade, Forest Commission, Rainforest Alliance companies instead of compromising values with costs. So this is something that we find if we were multimillionaires, then I'm sure we would live a almost perfect sustainable lifestyle. We're not multimillionaires, so we do have to compromise. We do our best, but we can't at the moment afford an electric car. We'd like one, but we can't afford one. We do our best to buy things that are obviously sustainable, but sometimes we can't. That is a problem that we're not going to solve with a GCSE DT project. More money is often the solution to these things, but we've got to find a problem which is solvable. So then I've asked her my last question. Can you think of 3 small-scale aspects of your life that could be made more sustainable? Now, look in there that I've said small-scale aspects. Remember, macro and micro. We are not going to say solve huge problems. We might be able to solve smaller problems. And she has said, no more plastic toothbrushes, no more single-use freezer bags, and no more cling film. Your primary user interview might want to go on for a bit longer than my one. Remember, my portfolio here is an example portfolio. If I was to submit this, if I wanted the best grade that I could, it would want to simply have more work on it for many of these slides. None of the answers that Laura, my wife, has given are yes or no answers. All of my questions were open questions. So she couldn't just say yes or no, because that doesn't really give me any information. I want to get into the mind of my primary user and find something out that I could solve for them. What I've done at the bottom here is I have summarised the things that I found out. Potential design problems, things that I could solve. And I've said I'm quite interested in the idea of an indestructible toothbrush. This could solve the issue of throwing old toothbrushes away. The difficulty here, of course, is that bristles on a toothbrush have to be quite soft to avoid hurting the user, and these are the parts that break. If it's something I can explore and try and design a solution to, that would be great. Another option is, could Laura benefit from a freezer box system rather than bags? That could be something as well. I've realised I've got a spelling mistake in here. Okay. 2 things for me to look at. She said no more cling film. I kind of feel like that's something that is not going to be very easy for me to solve. So I've decided to sort of discard that option. But I will look at the plastic toothbrushes and single-use freezer bags. Obviously, now I've done this work, the last thing I'm going to do is press my share button. I'm going to type in Miss Dilnut's name. There she is. And I'm going to send this to her. I'll wait for the green tick. There it is. She will now get back to me. Any questions, of course? Either ask them on the message section on the right-hand side here, or do send us an email. Thanks very much.